Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Gene Leonard. I'll be your MC for today, and I'm here with Maurice O'Brien, my colleague of several years, and an absolute oracle around workplace organisation, workplace design, and all things success. And Maurice will introduce himself in a minute, but let me tell you that anything to do with standardization, workplace organisation, we defer to Maurice around here due to his experience and expertise, and he'll share some of that with you later. Just to remind you, we're talking today about workplace organisation, and particularly Maurice will speak about the behaviours that workplace organisation help to develop to help you transform your businesses. It's a disciplined approach. We use success quite a bit, and we use it interchangeably with workplace organisation. It can really help restore order, efficiency, and drive safety in your organisation. It'll drive process efficiency through structure, create a culture of continuous improvement, or at least help embed that culture and propagate it. It's very much helps with safety and morale, and it can help sustain any kind of operational excellence program and help towards the dynamics of improving or bringing in more change into the organization. So if you already have some form of workplace organization, I've no doubt you'll get some tips or ideas. And to be honest, one of our colleagues came back from a trip to Toyota Dside not too long ago and was surprised that they had quite a significant project around success, thinking that Toyota had been doing this for years. But they explained that they had made some process changes and they needed to reinvigorate and reinforce success because it's the foundation of everything they do. So I thought it was interesting that even the greats that we tip our caps to go back to the basics of success and workplace organization. If you're unfamiliar with success, I'm sure you'll pick up a lot of tips and tricks from today that will help you get started on your journey. But I won't talk any further. I'll hand over to Maurice. He'll introduce himself and we'll get started on this. And we'll do it in the form of questions and answers. So over to you, Maurice.
So, excuse me, thanks, Gene. I must remember this recording the next time I'm looking for a pay rise. That was a great introduction to me. Yeah, so basically you can see by the cut of me, I've been around a while. I've been in, I've worked in places, computer industry, like Dell. I've worked in the e-learning business, and for the last 15 years, I've been a lean consultant in all kinds of businesses from meat processing to electronics. So essentially, I suppose what we're trying to do today is just bring some of my experience and, you know, hopefully you'll get some learnings from it.
Thanks, Maurice.
I'll be sharing, sorry, Gene, I'll be sharing just some slides as we go along. So I'm just going to share those. Sorry, Gene, once you're finished.
Yeah, far away.
Yeah.
So, Maurice, we start at the start. Like we call it success here at LBS Partners, and I think Toyota started calling it 5S. So, and it's called other things as well. There are other numbers of S's. Would you just explain what success 5S is, or your thoughts on the amount of S's there should be?
Yeah, well, you see varying interpretations of it, but essentially it kind of came from Far East, Toyota. There was originally, I came across 5 Japanese words, which I can't pronounce, so I'm not going to go into them here. But essentially, essentially the way we talk about it is 5S. I've heard 7S, 6S, 8S. I've heard I was at an LBI conference lately and 2 companies did presentations at it, and they just talked about 3S, which is the core of what we talk about. But essentially, the way we present it is up on the slide there at the moment. We moved from 5S to 6S because we wanted to talk specifically about safety explicitly. Because essentially, it's like the old adage, like safety first. So essentially, what we wanted to do was, no matter what you did as part of a workplace organization or success, it had to be safe for the people that's working there. Everybody needs to go home safe and intact. So safety obviously is the first, then, we go into the sort, the set in order, shine, standardize, and sustain. As I said, some people talk about 3S, but it's just kind of like the sort, the set in order, and the standardize. Essentially what you're trying to do, whatever you call it, you're working towards setting a standard, towards setting, a standard for basic performance.
Thanks, Maurice. You quite rightly describe how we put a lot of emphasis around safety. Now, it's also very helpful because safety is a non-negotiable. Nobody can argue with safety. So if we're doing success to help with safety, a well-organized workplace is a safe workplace. It often gets over a lot of objections or reasons why people wouldn't want to do it. But let's move on. You have a lot of experience, Maurice, with helping companies with workplace organization. Why do you keep doing it? I mean, you've been doing it for a long number of years, but would you mind describing for everybody why you keep doing what you're doing?
Well, I suppose the short and sweet answer to that is because it works. I've seen it work with different companies. It doesn't always work with companies, but we'll talk about that again later. But if you look at the slide I've got up there, just on the top left, my brother-in-law is a mechanic by trade, and he used to drive, but he's retired now, but he used to drive buses. But I was down with him one day in his workshop, and if you look at the image on the left, he had done that. It's very simple. It's just all the spanners, whatever, hanging off nails. But essentially, like, to him, that makes sense because he knows where everything is, and he can find it easily. And I was kind of telling him, well, we tell people how to do that, and he was kind of looking at me like I had two heads. It's kind of like it's the most natural thing in the world to him. So it works for him. Bottom left is a drawer that I have here. I'm working from home today. So if I reach over here, that drawer is here, and I can find whatever I'm looking for, the scissors, the markers, whatever, and it's right here beside me. I used to turn the air blue on weekends before swearing because I couldn't find something. And when I first started reading about, success, I was talking about reduces frustration. I kind of asked myself, how does it do that? It just makes it easy to find stuff. The other images are like when on weekends, sometimes I get time, I actually paint, and I've got it I've got a setup outside in the shed. So if you look at the image in the middle, on the left of that image, you can see all the kind of different colors of paints. They're looking a bit manky there and used, but essentially, before I set that up, they were all in a large tin, and I had to go rooting through it. And then inevitably, the one I was looking for was at the bottom. Just a waste of time. So I haven't laid out there, and it's very easy for me to find whatever color I'm looking for. And I suppose the other thing about it is, in terms of when you talk about behaviors and habits, it actually, once you have something, what I find once I have that set up, I put all the stuff back when I'm finished. So the next time I'm coming, I'm all ready to go again. So like the thing is, it's kind of like what you're doing here, no more than with myself, is kind of creating new habits and kind of reinforcing them. And somebody once said to me, a production manager said that, once you have a place for something, you kind of get in the habit of putting it back. Whereas if it's just thrown everywhere, it's very hard to find. So essentially, the short answer to your question is because I've seen it work. I've seen it work in plenty of places as well, apart from my shed.
Okay, well, Maurice, thank you very much. Then, how about the title of this webinar is really about the behaviours required for change. Why do you think that's so important?
Well, I suppose for any company or any organization that's looking at kind of a lean transformation, it's important that you depart from the existing behaviors. So it's a change when you get into just more example, when you get into, if you're trying to do lean, you have to change the mindset. Now, if I just digress a minute and say, why is it difficult? How is it difficult to change behaviors? When you're up to your in alligators, it's very hard to focus on process improvement. When you're you have different priorities, you're firefighting, whatever. But at the end of the day, like from my experience, the biggest thing that kind of impedes change is people don't see a need for it. It's kind of like, well, we've always done it this way. So it's kind of, it's grand, they don't even think, they don't even see that they could improve things. So it's kind of like, again, I suppose the reference with the large reptile there is like you want to go from a chaotic environment to something that's more controlled. So what you're doing is with Success Workplace Organization, it's a kind of an entry level into kind of stabilizing that environment. Because if you're working in a chaotic environment, it's very difficult to improve it. So changed behaviors, breaking the old habits, changing the old ways, building new habits, and kind of enforcing the discipline um, to maintain them, to sustain them, is kind of, it's the foundation for any kind of lean transformation.
Very good, very good. And like you're describing their habits that have built up over years, and I suppose the very nature of habits are that people don't think, they just do them without thinking, and we're trying to get them to act their way to a new way of thinking, if you like. But
Yeah.
what specifically would you recommend to people to increase their chances of real behavior change?
I suppose initially it's the approach that you take. It's the kind of inclusive approach to bringing everybody into it, to making them understand, helping them understand why you're doing it and what the benefits will be. Like when I talk to people, when I'm doing Success or when I'm doing training with people, I kind of say, don't do it for me, I won't be here. Like, do it for yourself. Essentially what you want to do, like, is, from the management point of view, go and listen to people, explain why you're doing it, and then kind of support that as you go on. And, emphasize the importance of it, that this isn't just the flavor of the month. This is actually something that is going to make people's life easier, and it's going to be better for not just the organization, but for the people themselves as well.
So you mentioned behavior versus knowledge, like how informing them is very important.
Informing them is very important, but like even a couple of weeks ago I was doing white belt training and I went through stuff like Success and whatever, and like I just asked the group, it was a small group, like, what did you think of that? And it's kind of like, it's all common sense, like this is what they were saying to me, and I'm saying, well, common sense isn't that common. And I've been in situations before where it's almost like, people say, sure, I know that, but the third thing is they don't practice it. So
And
the thing is, knowing it is one thing, but actually practicing it in your own workspace and actually sustaining and building on it is a different thing altogether. And that's where the change in the behaviors comes in. It's
and
not
could you
necessarily the
explain?
knowledge,
So,
because, to be quite honest, like none of this is rocket science. But
and
the thing is implementing it and building the habit.
very good. And Maurice, would you explain the four steps, the discipline, structure, visibility, and process that you use?
Um, well, let's see if I go on to here. So essentially, it's kind of like just what we've been talking about in terms of the behavior versus the knowledge, but trying to get people involved in it. It's like the examples I showed you there a few minutes ago, where I actually do it myself. There's nobody putting a gun to my head to do it in my own time, but I know it works, so I do it. I constantly say to people, it's, try do this to make your job easier. And if you look at the kind of graphic there on the left, essentially what you're trying to do initially is try to give people the structure so they can build the habits and change the behaviors. A lot of initial stages in doing the standardization is making the work visible. So, I've been in some environments where, it's impossible to see what's going on. So one of the things is visibility. There's the emphasis on the process then, because no matter whether you're working on a line building computers or you're in an office, it's all there. Everyone's got a process. And the Success, the workplace organization should serve the process, not vice versa. And then
Very
it's
good.
building the discipline. And building the discipline is not only the people themselves, but it's how it's supported by supervisors and managers as well. Discipline at the end of the day makes a difference. If you go back to the Success steps, the hardest one is often sustaining it. And that's where you need to put effort in.
Thanks, Maurice. I should have mentioned earlier, if any of you have specific questions, please put them into the chat and we'll ask Maurice. Hopefully we'll have a bit of time at the end, and I'll try and keep us moving, given that we started late. Maurice, could you quickly tell us, and honestly, if you don't mind, have you ever had a success program that failed?
Yeah, well, if I said no, that everything I ever turned my hand to succeeded, I'd be telling porkies. But essentially, like, you know, what I would say is essentially there's 4 points on that slide, but essentially it all comes back to purpose, in my opinion. Essentially, why are we doing this? I've been in numerous situations where, you know, somebody is told at management level that they have to do this, and then that we have to do it is just kind of passed on down the line. So rather than something that's kind of coming from, even if you want to call it the bottom up, it's coming from the top down and said, you have to do this, as opposed to presenting it as something that is going to help people. It's basically why things have failed. And, you know, I suppose if I'm the common element, like, let's assume that I'm doing my job right, what I find is it's a lack of commitment. It's paying lip service to what they're doing. People kind of not understanding exactly what they're trying to do or what they're trying to achieve by doing this. So it's, you know, it's the lack of the understanding of why and communicating to everybody in the organization. Lack of focus, then after that, the management support and discipline, but it all starts with why, like. And essentially, if people don't sign up for that, or people don't understand why they're doing it, it's not going to succeed. And they have to have the commitment to follow through as well. You know, when you're setting this up, it takes a bit of work. But once you have it set up, like, you know, as time goes on, you may processes may change or whatever. But you know, once it's set up, essentially it's set up. It's just a matter of following through the routines and building the management systems as well.
Very good, very good. Maurice, would you elaborate a little on that management support? What support are you talking about there that you would look for a program to be successful?
Essentially, it's kind of, again, an example from the past. I was working with a guy once. He was a production manager, nicest guy I'd ever meet, but not the type I would have thought would take the 6S or 5S as we talked about at the time, but he actually did. And, like, you know, they were part of it is where you're doing the floor lighting or whatever, and there's locations set up for everything. He found himself that his behavior was changing because if he saw something out of place, he just put it back in. Now, he wouldn't cause a big fuss over it. But the thing is, I suppose what I'm trying to get towards is the first thing is you get what you accept. So, and coming out of that is kind of, you know, setting the expectations. So essentially the first thing is tell people what you expect of them and make that very clear. A second point then is, you know, you get out of it to a certain extent what you put into it. So there's no point everybody's on the floors doing this and all the managers are not. So essentially they have to demonstrate. It's kind of like leading by example as well in terms of, okay, it's not the guys on the floor saying it's not just us, they're actually doing it as well. Because sometimes there's that split. And if people on the floor don't see it happening everywhere, you know, it's going to be more difficult to succeed. Excuse me. And then there's kind of the coaching. I mean, what I have up here is what we call a waste walk. So it's kind of it's one of those routines I was talking about, one of the management routines. So essentially it's, you know, depending on the size of the organization, you may do it every week in all areas, or you may do it in just some areas. But essentially what you're doing is, you know, you're actually going on the floor, you're talking to people, and essentially, you know, once you've started this success initiative, you know, how is it working for you? Could we do better? It's that kind of offering that help and support as opposed to coming in and being critical. It's a kind of a coaching role as well as, you know, kind of setting the direction, I guess.
Yes, I think that's very important.
Before you go on, just one thing. It's the management systems you set up around it as well in terms of following up on it. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just going to elaborate on what you were saying there. It's very, very important. These waste walks are absolutely brilliant when they're done right, but it's very, very important that the whole air of them is very much a supportive we're here to help you and get obstacles out of your way and make processes easier to do. If they're a group of people arriving down to an area and finding lots of faults with it, then that will really, annoy everybody, as distinct from if it's constructive and we can get them simple tools or simple ideas or just do things to make their jobs easier, then they'll naturally buy into the success in the workplace organization. So
yeah, well, there's nothing that'll kill a success program quicker than people coming down and nitpicking and kicking people's behinds.
yes,
That's how you lose. That's how you lose the dressing room.
absolutely. Maurice, where does success fit in the bigger picture of an excellence or a transformation program?
Sorry, is somebody okay? Sorry, there was somebody just coming in there. Okay, so I've put this thing up. It's been referred to in the past as a kind of a visual management pyramid, but you could also think of it in terms of a kind of a 7, different levels of robustness of process, shall we say. So, at the base of the pyramid, we have we have what we're talking about in terms of success, workplace organization, and there's various different levels. I won't spend a whole lot of time going into them, but at the very top of it, it's kind of error proof. You can only do the job once, one way. You can't basically mess it up. But the foundation for any of these things is the workplace organization. As I said, what you're trying to do is you're trying to remove the chaos from systems and try to put some kind of level of organization around it. And it's the basic kind of setting the basic standard for performance. And that's what it's about. And then once you've done that, then you can start reviewing your process or your own setups and making them more and more secure or robust so that, as much as possible, things can't go wrong. Sorry, I just had to admit somebody.
Thanks, Maurice.
Yeah, so I mean, essentially, it's just the basis for, and like an extension of that then is it's the basis for any lean transformation. Like I said earlier on, I lost control here. In terms of, and this graphic is kind of busy, but essentially, if you're looking at a kind of a transformation, a lean transformation, you start here on the left by building the foundation. So like you're talking about things like, helping people understand, educating people, and what's the difference between value versus waste. So it's kind of like visualizing the work and then the workplace organization. So that's where you start. As you as you go on your kind of journey, you can get into, developing your kind of continuous improvement culture. So by making the work visible, you start, identifying problems that you can start fixing. So then you get into the improvement culture. You start with the basic problem solving, the yellow belt. As you go on, then you get into bigger problems, green belt projects, and up at the top, then you're really changing the culture. But essentially, the foundation of all that, and over time, the foundation is the workplace organization. And the thing about it is, I've been around a long time, and periodically these things come out and they're the kind of the flavor of the month, and it's going to revolutionize everything. But essentially, the basics have to be in place first. And the other thing is, like, it's not just, I presume a lot of people here, not everybody, but a lot of people are in a production environment. This is not just a production environment. Everybody has to participate. Everybody, like a case in point was years ago, somebody was about 50 people in the company, and they asked me to train 4 of the 50 in success. And I said, no, you can't do that. Because first of all, the 4 know about it, the other 46 will be wondering why they were left out. So basically we started by telling everybody what's going on, giving them the basic information so as that everybody knows what's going on. It's kind of come back to respect for people as well, But essentially, you start by stabilizing the environment, by visualizing the work and putting the organization in place.
Thanks. So I'm a little conscious of time, so we'll probably have to just quickly go through these couple of questions here.
Yep.
So you described, and we talked earlier about Toyota having success of the likes and big companies. But what if it's a much smaller company or a service type company or has a high mix of products or process variation or customization? Will it still work there?
Yeah, I was trying to think of some examples of these. And if you look at, these are just a few kind of images I picked off the internet, but essentially it's trying to make the point, like from my point of view, I know like in the Toyota, they're high volume, building all the same thing, it's great, but you have people there who are maybe putting on a steering wheel or putting on a door or something, and that's all they're doing all day. In smaller kind of job shops or whatever, like where every job is different, every project is different, to me, it's even more important that you have some level of organization, that you have the success. So essentially, these kind of examples, you can see them here like yourselves. You don't need me to describe them, but, woodworking, carpentry, it could be on the left there, the kind of jewelry making, workshops, again, garages, for example. The better organized ones obviously will they'll be able to serve their customers better. And at the end of the day, like that's what you're trying to get towards as well. So there's various different examples there, your kind of electrical stores there where you have all your wiring, and it's all very easy to find. Like these days you see a lot of these things where you can hire somebody in a van to bring a bar to some event like a wedding or whatever. Like, but if you look at that, imagine if you have 10 Irish people ordering drinks at the moment, you need to be able to find the stuff fairly quickly. So there's just examples there where it's all laid out and very easy to get at. Saying there, a sandwich bar, and like the thing is as well, the things we probably don't even think of. When we talk about these initiatives, it's kind of like, an electrician come around your house or doing a job that, their van is well laid out. Now, I've seen examples of good ones, I've seen examples of bad ones. Plumber comes or the electrician comes, and they should be able to lay their hands on what they need fairly quickly. So to me, like, you know, success is ubiquitous. Like, as I say, like I'm doing it outside in the shed with my pants, but it's even more important where there is such variety, because again, it reduces the time to change over or find stuff or whatever. And it's just kind of bearing that in mind. To me,
Very
it's
good.
it's it's it's
Very
very
good, Morris.
important.
Are there any tools? I'm just conscious of time again. Are there any
Yeah, I
tools
know.
that you would call out and say these ones are particularly important?
Right. I'll go through this briefly then, but essentially, like the first thing when I start, say if I train people in success and then I go down to their area, I ask them to think in the context of whatever process they're doing there. So essentially, I kind of ask them to take the opportunity to review where the process is, and is there something that can be improved? Is there something that's in there that's not adding value? Is it wasteful? Can we get rid of it before you actually do the success? So any things I'm talking about are, you know, process mapping. So just go through all the steps and see is there anything that can be taken out before you actually put the workplace organization in place. The kind of things like, motion mapping, you'll call it, sometimes you'll hear it called spaghetti diagrams, but it's kind of like there where you have the layout on the left. And essentially what you do is trace the movements of material and people through it. You can actually measure the distances. And essentially, for example, in this, you look at this, and then if you look at the before and after, the the amount of space actually needed is a lot less, and it's actually it reflects a project I did recently with a client. I didn't want to put the actual photographs up, but essentially it was very much what happened here. So you took a process that was on a big long line and made a cell and made it into a cell. So it's kind of like things like that. And then when you look at layouts as well, because layout will come into it, there's various different things you can do. On the top left there is just simple, get a drawing, an actual scale drawing, cut out just cardboard shapes to the shapes of whatever you want to stick in there, and move them around to optimize the flow. The benefit of even doing that is that, if there are people who are not used to interpreting drawings, that it's tactile, so they can move stuff around. It's something that more people can relate to. An extension of that then is if you have the skills of software, you can do the 3D kind of drawing on the map. And what we've done in the past, as you know, is basically we've kind of got a layout, got a list of everything that's in there, got all the dimensions of them, made 3D models, and actually moved them around to optimize the layout. So they're the kind of things I use. the most important of those three to me is start by looking at the process, because success needs to serve the process. Sorry, I'm going through a bit quickly now. I know we're conscious of time.
I know I was pushing you, Maurice, there because I want to let a bit of time just in case there are any questions coming in, and feel free to put them in the chat there. And Dan or Mark will keep an eye for me on if there's anything in the chat. But Maurice, final question from me. Have you any parting nuggets of advice to increase people's chances of their success or their workplace organization helping to improve their performance?
Well, just to go on to this, like, you know, in terms of standardization, we always talk about standard work being the safest, the best and most efficient way to do a task, and it's written down and you put procedures on it. So essentially, you know, if I start here, like on the top right of the circle, you got standard processes. So making sure your processes are robust enough to do what you're trying to do. Documented processes, train the workforce. We talk about the 8 wastes. One of the 8 wastes we talk about is skills. So there's 2 elements to that. One is actually training the people to do the job correctly. The other element of it is listening to them if they have any suggestions. Pay them the respect to listen to them. And the final element in that then is performance measurement. One of the big wigs in Lean said years ago, if you don't measure it, you can't improve it. So that's the kind of standard work part of it. But then we talked already about the you know, the management support and the encouragement, but so essentially we're kind of, you know, we talked about you get what you accept. So set the expectations, set them high, and actually, you know, follow up on it. If you look at what we have here, that's setting the standard, that's setting the expectation. Go and observe, see how it's working. See, is it, you know, are people complying with it? If they're not complying with it, they're probably not just being thick. There's probably something that could be improved. So ask them and listen to them, and, you know, take in their suggestions. And then there's a huge element of coaching. So like the you know, the management at all levels should be kind of coaching people rather than kicking them. So the thing is, they're the things, you know, but I mean, we talk about leader standard work. I talked about management systems earlier on. It's developing the routines so that this stuff, it comes back to behaviors and habits. Habits are routines. So you have to get people into the routine of doing it all the time and encourage them. And where there's something stopping them from doing it, help them sort it out. So, you know, it's kind of like, and the thing is, just going back to one of the routines, the waste walk, done properly, it's going to be a huge assistance. But if you go down and start nitpicking, it's going to kill things. So I suppose the very start, I'd say the management have to take it seriously as well. And they have to help people understand it is something that's being done. It is going to help. And then the other thing as well, like, which is sometimes forgotten, it's to celebrate any achievements, you know, and be aware of what's going on and celebrate those achievements so that people are encouraged to keep doing it.
Thank you
that
very
answers
much.
Your question.
It does indeed. No, thank you very much. It's really an interesting topic, and it's the bedrock of nearly any transformation program that we do. But I just check if there's any questions there online right now, or if because of the delays or whatever at the start, if you're time constrained, we'd be happy to take the questions by email and answer them for you. If there aren't any, Dan or Mark.
No, there's nothing at the minute in the chat.
Okay, I hope the chat is enabled. If not, my apologies, but you can send them in afterwards. I'd also like to just in summary say that look, workplace organization, it's a great way to improve processes, engage people, and create an environment that's conducive to change. What we'd like to do is suggest that we will make a video of this available to you. But we also have a small booklet that Maurice produced, and if you email or send in on chat,
there it is.
That booklet Maurice has there on success, we'll post one out to you. we'd be delighted to do that. We also, in the coming weeks, will send you on, anybody that was here or signed up for the webinar, we'll send you on 1 or 2 templates we have for audits and the likes. We've also created a Success app. It's done through the normal Microsoft applications that you have right now, but it's very simple. An audit can be done with the photographs of what the evidence that you see when you do the audit. It can be baked into this little app and collated into a large list of opportunities for improvement coming from your waste walks. We'll send you a little bit about that. If anybody wants to see how that can help, we'll embed that in the email and give you a little video about that. And finally, Maurice is happy. If any of you would like to talk further about your Success program, your needs, or some questions, we'd set up a 20-minute chat with Maurice to talk about that. So if there aren't any questions,
we just have one there in the Q&A section from Philip, just asking if the slides will be sent out afterwards.
We will indeed.
Yeah. We make those available, yeah.
We will indeed. We'll send the slides out, and the video will be available. But I'd just like to thank you all for joining us today, and sincerest apologies to anybody who missed it because we messed up with the link, but we will make the video available and publish that out very quickly. But thank you all most sincerely, and I'll follow up with whatever mistake I've made here that we didn't have the link set up so that we could start on time. But thank you all very much for your time. Much appreciated. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.